Welcome to AT&T's teleconference service. Please enter your access code, followed by the pound sign. The host has not yet arrived. Please stand by. Your conference will begin momentarily. Please continue to hold. Your conference will begin momentarily. Please continue to hold. Your conference will begin momentarily. Please continue to hold. Your conference will begin momentarily. Please continue to hold. Your conference will begin momentarily. Please continue to hold. Your conference will begin momentarily. Please continue to hold. conference will begin momentarily. Please continue to hold. Your conference will begin momentarily. Please continue to hold. Your conference will begin momentarily. Please continue to hold. There are 14 participants on the call, including you. You are now being joined to your conference. For a menu of available commands, press *#. To request a specialist, press *0. To hear the participant count, press *5. To mute your line, press *6. To hear a roll call, press *9. To replay this message, press *#.
Hello? Hello? Hi. Hi. Jessica Surf, I just logged on to the line. What is it? Hello?
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 Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Hi, everybody. Angela.
Hey, Angela.
Thanks, Manat. Is Manat on?
I think we're waiting for the host. I'm not sure how these conferences begin.
Okay, give me a second here.
Hey Angela, it's Rhajit here. I've logged on as the host.
Oh, okay. How are you, Rhajit?
I'm fantastic. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Hi, guys. It's been up.
Hey, there you are.
Yeah.
Thanks for the reminder, Manat.
No worries. And I tried logging in as a host, but I guess Rajit got there before me.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No. That's good.
Hi, I'm Patty. I just started here with Edward Jones. Oh, congratulations. What office are you in, Patty?
Nick Law?
Oh, awesome. Nick worked in our office. Which office? Which office are you in, or? John Chun's office.
Okay. That's necessary. Getting to know all the different locations.
Yeah, no worries.
All right, we've got everyone on the call. It's 11:32 that I have on the call here. So I want to respect everyone's time and get started. Basically, this call that we're doing today is usually the BOA leadership team. And the BOA leadership team sort of decides on a few things. They decide on the lunch and learns that we do. We decide on some of the social activities that we do, and we talk about the spring regional meetings, and then we have a couple of new roles like the RRTA, region recruiting team advocate, which Angela takes care of for us, and then we also have a BOA who's responsible for our culture of compliance, and a BOA responsible also for the client solution side as well. So, for that we have people like, as I mentioned, Angela there, but we have Minat, we have the region leader BOAs, Neha and Suzanne, we have Agnes, who helps us, we have Jenny, we have Kay. So if I've left anyone off, just let me know. Minat, did I leave anyone off? Iris, of course, and so that's the BOA leadership team, and they do a fantastic job of keeping all the BOAs informed of what's going on in the region, and also helping us to put together some good climate activities. In that vein, before we get started with what Victor wants to share with us and everyone else, I just want to go over a couple of quick things. So we have two dates that we're thinking of, Angela, for this BOA Spring Regional, and we have many other BOAs on the call. If there's any preferences, you can let us know. What the two dates that we have in mind are April 16th or 23rd, based on our prior conversation. Is there a preference or not? And Angela, I'll leave that with you for now.
For 16 or 23rd, I was wondering, I haven't received any correspondence yet from anyone about this.
Yeah, so you will get one. You will start getting it once we tell them a date.
Oh, okay,
So
perfect.
they're just they were waiting for us to give them a date. I didn't want to give them a date until we spoke about it together as a team.
Sure. Does anybody have a preference, 16th or 23rd?
This is Agnes. I would prefer the 16th. The 23rd, I might be on vacation.
Okay, no objections to that. Let's do the 16th, Rhajit.
Okay. So you'll start getting correspondence on that, Angela. You're a pro at it. You know what you're doing there, so I don't need to worry too much about it. Just maybe we can sort of try to pick a location that makes sense for everybody, as we've done in the past. And you and I can talk about that offline if you want.
Sure. I'll call you.
From there. The other thing I wanted to sort of just bring up before we move on is last year. We all went to the Blue Jays game. A lot of the BOAs brought their spouses, and we had a Blue Jays game day. Is that something that you all feel like we should pursue this year, or should we do something different? So this is aimed at everyone on the call, but of course if the BOA leadership team has something they want to share, that's great too.
What was the budget for that, Rhajit?
Good question. I think we spent about $1,200 altogether.
So
Because
we're
it was
looking at something comparable if we do anything different, right?
Yeah, as long as it's in that vicinity. The whole idea behind the Blue Jays game was it's a good way to get spouses involved and have BOAs and FAs together. So that's why we had chosen that last year. But it doesn't have to be that. We're getting emails from the Blue Jays and saying, do you want to do the same thing again? And so they'll give us a little bit of a preference. But I'm not married to that idea. If there's any better ideas that we want to think about, we can. So just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah, I thought the Blue Jays game was great. I know everybody enjoys it, but there wasn't a lot of chance to mingle or chat or anything of that sort, which is came, watched the game, and left, really. Honestly.
Yeah, because it's not in a box or anything, right? So because it's not in a box, it's really hard to mingle.
Everybody was
I'll tell you
spread
what I
out.
would love, but this might be a little too much off the charts. I don't know. But
Sorry, say that again?
I said, does anybody, I don't know if Cirque du Soleil would be something that would be of interest.
So I'm sure it could be, but I'm not sure it would be the same price range.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I was getting at. I don't know if that's too off the charts with the pricing. But they do have, like, I think an area where you could mingle as a group. I actually got an email from, speaking of emails that you've gotten from the Blue Jays, I got one from the Mervish production because they were asking us if we or asking me if we wanted to put on, like, you know, see any type of show, and they have like a private area for people to mingle as well if you're a big group. But I don't know if that's for everybody. Plus, pricing gets a little bit up there, right? Unless we get high seats.
Yeah, so let's do
Just
this.
some ideas.
Yeah, so let's do this. Maybe Angela, you wanna, or Minat, one of you can sort of lead maybe a discussion group or something, and maybe solicit some ideas, and then we'll nail it down and have it nailed down for the next call. Is that okay?
Yeah. When were you thinking of an event like the Blue Jays or anything else?
In May.
May. Okay.
Yeah.
So
On the website for Cirque du Soleil,
Yeah.
Toronto shows will be September.
oh, okay. So that's not now. Yeah.
Unless you go to Hamilton, that's May.
Yeah. I don't think too many people will be happy with that. Okay. We'll think about it.
But
Yeah,
that's
maybe-
something that we
maybe-
can say for
maybe-
later in the year.
If anybody wants to send me or Minot, or both of us actually, why don't we do that? Send Minot and myself, CC both of us on it, an email of ideas. And then maybe Minot and I can kind of go through them together would be helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah, whatever you say is fine. I was just off the phone for a bit, but I'm all game for whatever you guys just discussed.
Sounds good to you. You and I are going to be talking about an event for May, but
Okay.
I asked all BOAs on the call to send you and I, CC each other on an email of ideas, and then you and I can discuss it.
Perfect. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Sounds good.
Okay, great. So let's now move on to, I think Victor has done some work for us out of Robert Littfield's office and wanted to share some of his findings. So Victor, I'll turn it over to you. The floor is yours. Just want to keep in mind a couple of quick things. Number one, our organization, Edward Jones, consists of basically 20,000 people who work at home office, during our home offices, in the field, and we have about 30,000 advisors and BOAs together. We have about 17,000 advisors. We have about 12,000 BOAs. And one of the things that I sort of pride about our firm more than anything else is that there's always open communication, and it's always done with candor, and it's always done with respect. So let's continue on with that tradition. And remember that, you know, all the things that we bring up, the decisions have to be made for 12,000 people, or have to be made for 17,000 people. So we might have some unique challenges, but I can tell you with a population that size, the concerns are probably very similar across the board, and we would have to come up with a concerted strategy to change anything over the long term. But having said that, you know, we have an open line directly to our managing partner. So, you know, if you wanted to ever send an email to Penny Pennington, you can send an email to Penny Pennington or a request, and she will actually answer those. So it's a really neat culture that way. And like I said, as long as we're doing there's that kind of communication with candor and with respect, I think we'll all be well served. So with that as a background, let me turn it over to Victor.
Thank you, Rajit. You guys can hear me, right?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, okay, great. Yeah, like I spoke to you, Rajit, a couple of weeks ago, and you told me you wanted not a us versus them conversation. And my goal was just basically to get the general vibe, the general sort of details, and compile it together in one report, and then pick out one or two major issues that I think all of us share. I spoke to each and every single BOA. I simply asked them to share any questions, concerns they have, and I took notes. I did promise to keep everyone confidential. I think I spoke to 34 or 33 BOAs in our region. I think I only missed 2. So I think I got everyone. And the 2 major issues I have, or we have, I should say, is the salary and the fact that BOAs are in a unequal power relationship in regards to their FA in HR. And we also spent a lot of time thinking about ways we can work together, our FA's home office, and ways to fix these issues. But let me just summarize the salary issue for one. So I spoke to a number of senior BOAs, and they've all confirmed that our salary in the industry, this is being compared to unlicensed assistants. So for that job details page where it shows you the minimum, mid, and max range, that's the industry standard for assistant. So that's the one issue that I think a lot of BOAs have, is because we do a lot more than that role of assistant. There's not really anywhere else in the industry, and I've talked to a lot of mutual fund companies. I've talked to my own bank. I've given my job description, and they say there's nothing in their industry or their business that matches that. So I think BOAs have a very unique hybrid role, and I think it's not okay to be comparing, or home office for us to be compared to the bottom of the barrel in the industry. So that's one sentiment I feel like all BOAs share. So that creates that sort of animosity of feeling underappreciated and undervalued, and I think that's hitting morale for a lot of BOAs. The other issue is even for assistant, that industry standard, every year we see that being bumped up. And yet Edward Jones, for our own salaries, has only been doing, over the last couple of years, a 1% market adjustment. So let's say, 5 years ago you were 40% away from your mid-range. Now you're 50% away because, we haven't kept up to the industry. I do know, I talked to Home Office, HR, I think her name was Catherine, that there's going to be in this summer a 3% market increase. So I think Home Office is starting to recognize Toronto living expenses for one, and just the general sense that they're lacking behind the industry. And so a lot of BOAs have been asking, how come Edward Jones can't be a leader with BOA salaries in the industry? And I think that's echoed by everyone, really. And I can give you a specific example. Say a BOA was hired 5 years ago at $33,000. After all the maximum performance annual increases, she's now at $36,000, which is now the new minimum that brand new, unexperienced BOAs are being hired at. So there's that sort of knowledge among BOAs, and a lot of people think that's not okay. It should be fairly indexed according to industry movements. There's also among profitable branches a lack of clear criteria set by the FA for the BOA to achieve the standards to get the bonus. And this sort of leads into the second issue, is when the BOA is promised something by the FA and the FA doesn't live up to their side of the bargain, or the FA is not doing their job, or the FA is being unprofessional, where does the BOA turn to? You know, I turned to HR. I can tell you immediately from my personal experience, it was not okay. And that's how I started this whole project. As I went up to Agnes, I had the same questions. She said, well, I get these questions all the time. And I was like, okay, well, let me talk to every single BOA and see if I can find the answers. So for the answer, who can the BOA turn to? We have a BOA ombudsman line. It's on the BOA webpage. You can read that out. But they're basically powerless. They're not going to act as a mediator between you and your FA. At the same time, HR's interests are thinking about the bottom line of the branch, of the region, of the area. And so when it comes to questions about salary, you know, they're going to throw the contract that you signed in your face. You know, it doesn't matter what your FA said. And even if your FA clearly violated some sort of Edward Jones policies about giving bonuses through gift cards or something like that, they're not really held accountable to that or reprimanded either. And a lot of BOAs have mentioned this to me, is where do I go to when my FA is not doing their job, or, you know, being unprofessional to me? And, you know, I have in my report in front of me, and it's about 2,500 words. You know, it's very detailed. You know, I tried categorizing around job security, low morale, professional discourtesy, mental frustration, exhaustion. But typically, they all stem around these two main issues, which is salary and then dealing with the FA and HR. And typically, we're disillusioned with the salary. We're in a powerless position. A lot of us, I was actually very surprised, are afraid to speak up. And I don't think that's part of the sort of open and candid Edward Jones culture. You know, I'm trying to move forward positively. I think I've got the BOA side very, very clear. And now I'm talking to you, Rhajit. I'm going to be talking to Pennington. I'm going to be talking to everyone else on the other side to see where their perspective is coming from. But we definitely do have lots of ideas how to improve this. You know, a lot of BOAs, we think we should have more control about the training slides, the BOA page maintenance, you know, having an anonymous platform to communicate with each other, you know, sort of taking away that fear from having BOAs speak up in fear of retaliation. So yeah, that's the general gist of it. I'm going to be polishing up my report to make it present itself a little bit better, and then I'll be sending that out to you, Rhajit, and to every other BOA. And at the same time, I'm going to be continuing working on the report, seeing the other side of this, because obviously there's two interests here. One is the bottom line, and the other is a fair wage. So they're automatically opposing. So it's a delicate balance I'm trying to do here. And yeah, that's sort of the summary.
Okay, well, I'm not surprised by any of the findings that you sort of brought to the forefront here. I can tell you a couple of quick things here. I think every branch is unique in the relationship that they have between the advisors and the BOAs. So I don't want to generalize too much. Well, I will tell you one thing about, you know, a couple of things that you mentioned here. Number one, as far as the salary is concerned, do I think that there's an opportunity for our firm to improve in that category? I would say 100% there is. But I can tell you that Catherine Scovell at Home Office and the team, they're always doing research and making sure that the salary structure is competitive with the industry. You know, your research that you've done, I don't know how scientific it is or how you've compiled it, but I can assure you that the research that our HR does is very scientific, and they use outside agencies to compile that information. So, as you mentioned, if there's a market adjustment coming in the summer, that's great news for all the BOAs. I'm not privy to that information, but if you've spoken to her and that's what she said, then it should be coming. So I'll just comment on that way. The other thing that you talk about in terms of bottom line, I can tell you that is not the firm's concern. Any business that obviously people conduct is, it's designed to generate a profit. However, the way our model works, which most of you should be aware, I would assume, is that it's a very high cost model. Having one advisor and one BOA in a branch, sometimes it will take a branch 4, 5, 6 years to become profitable. So if you think about it that way, the firm has invested 4, 5, 6 years before branch is profitable. And not only have they obviously paid that advisor, especially a new advisor today, for their salary, they've also paid the BOA salary for the time the BOA's been there. So if the bottom line was the only concern, then we would have offices like some of our competitors where we put 30 advisors in one office, and to get your own assistant, you have to be producing over $1 million. We don't do that here. We have a single advisor, a single BOA, and it's a higher cost model, but that's what we think our clients want. Now, are we looking at other real estate options? Yes, we are. We're evolving with the times, but that's where we are today. If the bottom line was the only option, like I said, we would have decided 15 years ago to just put 30 advisors in each branch, and when you have 30 advisors in a branch, you could probably only get away with maybe 15 admin assistants instead of one for each advisor. Okay, so, and as far as the relationship between HR and you, that's again a matter of perception. People on this call will know we lost one of our top producing advisors a little while ago due to the fact that HR asked him to leave because he was in violation of some things. If the bottom line was a concern, that advisor would not have been asked to leave. It just doesn't work that way because as you know, you're employees of Edward Jones just like the advisors are. You don't work for the advisors that you're in. You work for Edward Jones, and you work in partnership with that advisor. Now, I know that every partnership is imperfect, and there's things that every relationship could probably work on, and those are things that we need to continue to evolve and address. I don't disagree with you there, but it's definitely not just about the bottom line.
Well, Rhajit, if I may interrupt.
Yep.
We don't work for Edward Jones. Each of us works for our FA. We tailor our service specifically to each FA. And at the same time, we are powerless to turn to someone. For example, we had a legacy in our office. He wasn't performing well, but it was in the branch's interest to keep him here for our bottom line. So you see the influence of the FA pressuring the bottom line on the BOA. So it's very clear when we have to deal with our FA over salary, or just being truthful with the legacy example, for example, the bottom line gets in the way. And another issue is, if there's a salary range, say 36,000 to 41,000 as the current range is, why doesn't the FA have more control of giving that maximum salary raise in the range? And why does HR get involved? It is after all the FA's bottom line that's being in question here.
So, like you just said that the BOA doesn't. Anyways, look, I don't want to get into a debate about who's right and who's wrong. If the BOAs if the advisors had full control over what they could pay their BOAs, it would be different. But that's not the reality.
Well, the reality is like this. It's easier for me to quit and be rehired at the maximum salary range. Because I think a lot of BOAs I've spoke to, they get hired full time and the FA has a lot of promises and says, listen, you do this for me, you show you're part of the business, that you want to be long term with me, that you care about our clients, that you build relationships, that you do all these things for me, then I'm going to look after you when it comes to your annual increases. And then the annual increases come along and HR says, well, listen, the contract says maximum 3% a year. And it becomes a situation where BOAs with 5 years experience now are now at the new minimum wage, and the FA is emailing HR and saying, listen, at least put her at the maximum range I could have initially hired without you even interfering. And there's a lot of FA HR sort of conflict then.
Right. So you're confirming what I'm saying, right? It's because BOAs work for Edward Jones. They control the salary scale, not necessarily the FA. I just want to put it out there again. Like I said, it's not us versus them, and if that's the road that you want to go down, that's okay too. But that's not the road I'm going down. I'm trying to give you.
Rhajit, this is the sentiment of this is the reality here.
That might be. I mean, and if it is, I would encourage every BOA on this call. If you have this sentiment, share it with me. To me,
they don't trust you, Rhajit. Rhajit, they don't trust you. I asked every single BOA what they think about you. They say you're a nice guy. I asked them, has Rhajit ever done any heavy hitting issues on these conferences called? And the answer is no. I asked, has Rhajit or any other regional leader aware of fighting for our salary or our rights or things like that? No. So it seems like
Victor, how long have you been here?
And that's my point.
How long have you been here?
I've only been here 2.5 years.
Okay, so
and I've only listened.
I want to be respectful here. I want to be very respectful. You've been here 2.5 years. This firm is 100 years old.
Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter, Rhajit.
Yeah, it does.
If I may, hello, can I interfere a little bit? This is Angela speaking. I was on a focus group that had to do very much so with compensation. And we've expressed many of the sentiments that you are talking about, Victor. There was a room of approximately, I want to say 30 BOAs and FAs in that room. And both BOAs and FAs expressed similar thoughts that you had. What I can tell you is that those different scenarios that were brought to their attention, they said they would take back. I think as a result, that's where the increase took place, maybe. I don't know for sure, but I know there was the annual increase that was adjusted a little bit. So I'm guessing it may have been as a result of that focus group, perhaps. Again, speculating. But one thing that they did mention is if so many BOAs are unhappy, then why is the rate at which BOAs are leaving is so low? And that was a point that I took back was, and then of course another BOA said, well, does it take BOAs to leave for Edward Jones to understand that they're not being fair with their compensation? And there was really, I don't remember what the comment was to that, but it was more of a rhetorical question. But my point is that they're going by facts, and the facts are that BOAs aren't leaving.
I can tell you why they're not leaving.
So they're thinking that if BOAs are not leaving, then really, if they're so dead against their salary and everything else, then why aren't they going to look elsewhere for a job?
And
that was one of the things.
Okay.
The other thing is, sorry, I was going to mention something else, but then I just got cut off. So go ahead, Victor. I'll see if I can remember what I was going to say.
So you mentioned that, why aren't BOAs leaving if they're so unhappy? And I've asked the same question. And many are in a financial precarious situation. That's the real thing, is they are desperate, they need this job. Some are very old, some are very senior, some have just accepted this sort of reality. Some have part-time jobs to supplement their income. I mean, look, they don't even want to speak out about this because in fear of losing their job, much less fight for a better situation. So,
But that's what they're going by. They're going by statistics.
well, the
They're
statistic.
not going by emotion on how we feel. They're
Well, look.
going by statistics. And that's the reality of it. Not to say that I agree with it, but that's the reality of it. They're not looking at emotion.
Which is I think great that they're asking these questions and looking at the statistics. But I think, and this is a good idea we all agree on, is there should be someone in HR that is dedicated for BOAs, that the BOAs can trust confidentially, and that representative has some sort of authority. I think that's pretty much the biggest idea for dealing with BOA issues, of who to turn to. And that's our main idea, is we should have someone in HR for BOAs, from BOAs.
Well,
Yeah, I don't-
sorry, Bridget, I'm going to mention one other thing if you don't mind. But there was, just because these are coming to mind from that focus group. The other thing that came up is, and then you actually did mention it already, Victor, is yes, our roles are very unique. And they've had to figure out, or they've tried or attempted to figure out where we fit, I think, in the salary, because our roles are not, we're not a licensed assistant, and we're not a financial advisor, and we're not just admin either. So they've had to kind of find a happy medium, because our roles are very unique to the industry. We don't have, our roles are not point blank, this is comparable to another role out there in the field. So it's very difficult for, if you can find a role similar, I think what you might want to start researching is a role that is very similar to ours. And if you can find out what the range of salary is for that role, which is apparently, they haven't found it, because if they have, they've kind of merged a few different roles to come up with what our role is. And then maybe that's how they've come up with a salary, I don't know. But I'm just saying, if you want to start by looking and researching what our role is and seeing if there's comparables out there, and then present to them, this is the salary range that this role has.
Yeah, I think
And
that's a good
perhaps-
idea.
Then perhaps you have a leg to stand on in that way. You have to be, if you're going to fight a little bit for this, you need to provide statistics, and that's what they're going to look at. They're not going to look at just out of the hat ideas and feelings.
Oh, I know this. And
I was in that
yeah.
focus group, and in the responses that I got, feelings, it was like, yes, thank you, we appreciate your feelings and sentiments, but it goes down to statistics. That's what I got out of it anyway.
Yeah, and that's something I need to research for sure. What is our role and how is it compared in the industry? What gets me though is that, and again, the fact that I'm inexperienced with Edward Jones and that other senior BOAs are confirming that we're being compared to the bottom of the barrel is in itself telling, because this is part of a pattern that I've noticed when you look at the big picture of all our feelings and sentiments and statistics. There's a pattern where it's Edward Jones is a typical corporation. They look at the bottom line, and the structure is such.
Victor, I'll just say, I think Angela said it very well. I think, anecdotes are powerful, but the numbers don't lie. So maybe you can work on that. As far as, what can we, what's a reasonable result from...
Rhajit, what I told BOAs the minimum goal of this conference call was to restore a little bit dignity. If you, a regional leader, could just admit to us that, listen, it's a free market capitalist society, and this is what people are willing to be paid, and they are willing to accept that, and this is what we give them. It's contrary.
May This is Minan.
Sure.
I just want to say thank you, Victor, for talking to everybody and putting together this report. You're right, a lot of BOAs do feel a certain way, and Angela's right. Edward Jones has been studying this for a very long time. I would love to see the report once it's done, and you can send that out to everybody. I'm sure Rajat would love to see it too. I love what Rajat said in the sense that Penny is so open to hearing from all of us. Maybe this is an opportunity for all BOAs to start reaching out in terms of what they want. And there are two people I can think of that they can reach out to, voice their concerns, and ask for what they want. One is Penny, of course, to write to her directly. And the more people that write, the more change will come about. And the second person to write to is Rajat. He is very open to listening to all of us. He has always, since the day he joined as the regional leader for our region, he has been very much focused on improving things for BOAs and the relationship between FAs and BOAs, and I definitely thank Rajat for that. So I can say with absolute confidence that, when you reach out to him, he will do his best to help us with whatever it is that we need to get done. And lastly, I think, again, this is a fantastic opportunity for engagement for the region, because we're always looking for ways to improve BOA engagement, and this is the opportunity to do that. So maybe we can all leave on a positive note in the sense of, let's all move forward to see what we can bring out of this in a positive way for us.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. I agree. And yeah, Victor, whatever, as I told you before, send us the report. I'll be happy to talk to Catherine Scovell about it. As I said, Angela brought up, that there has been focus groups around all of this. This is not something that's happening in a vacuum in just our region or any other region. There are ways to speak up. There are ways, and I just say, ultimately, just like every advisor that's out there and every BOA that's out there, you want to be treated fairly, and you want to be compensated fairly, and at the end of the day, you need to make choices based on what's best for your family and for yourself. And Edward Jones just got ranked Fortune's 7th best place to work for the 20th year in a row. So hopefully we're doing something right, because that survey isn't just advisors, it's 50-50 between FAs and BOAs. So I think some of the sentiments that sometimes you talk about might be with some newer advisors or newer here, or might be with veteran advisors as well.
On a positive note, I want to just say that even though I'm speaking like this, I will say most BOAs have a great relationship, they would say, with their FA. Even though their FA has done this to them, or the HR has done this to them, or there's been some sort of whatever, they would all say they have a great relationship with their FA. Because no one wants to work in an environment that's hostile. And, if your friend does something bad, that becomes part of his character, but you accept that, you still are friends with them. And that's sort of the sentiment I get, that everyone is still kind of happy with the relationship, but on the financial perspective, there needs to be some sort of work.
Yeah, and present your findings. There's a change coming in the summer, as you mentioned, and anything that I can do to further that cause at home office, I will definitely forward it to them and see. I just want every BOA who's still on the call to know that if there is anything that's going on in their particular branch that they want to discuss and I can help them with, I'm more than happy to. And if you want to reach out to any other particular BOA anonymously, like a lot of people reach out to Agnes or some other senior BOAs, and she can convey that message to me in an anonymous way, and I can take care of it or help, I will. I mean, at the end of the day, we all have a choice. If you feel you're not being, compensated the way you should, and you're being compared to a job somewhere else that's, that you would term as the bottom of the barrel, then, you need to look at yourself in the mirror and say, well, is this where I want to be long term or not? Because, like you said, Victor, there's no point in being in a place where you're unhappy or you don't feel like you're treated fairly.
There is a point. It pays the bills, right?
Well, I must say though, Victor, if it's okay that I speak for a second, there are other opportunities within Edward Jones that are posted on our internal.
Look, I'm arguing the principle here of Edward Jones' business model and culture. I think if BOAs are treated better on salary, the branches and the teams, they will grow quicker. They would live up to Edward Jones' culture as well. Ted Jones says, money is not my God, That appeals to me. My background is political science. I like the culture of Edward Jones. I just don't see it living up to it from my perspective and the region's perspective. And I'm trying, and I just said this. I promise to everyone that I will try to figure out what the situation is, if we can change anything or if we have anything acknowledged by management. That's my goal, And listen. I told a lot of BOAs, if I have one BOA that says to me, Victor, shut up, you're not speaking for the region, I'm gonna let this go. Okay, because I don't need to do this extra work. I can go to work and work for Robert just like I did before. It's not an issue for me, really.
Well, I can tell you too, Victor, that a lot of things that we do in our branches are probably not necessarily acknowledged. What we do in the branch in the field looks probably a little bit different than what is described as the BOA role at head office. So if you wanted to indicate in detail what the reality of our role is, and not what is just indicated on our job description.
This is in my report. This will be in my report, yeah.
Then that might also be something that can help out, because there's a lot more things that we do that are not on that job description. So how do they justify that in our salary? That might be another way to go too.
Yeah, like I said, my report is about 2,500 words. It's very detailed. I didn't want to give it out to everyone until I got some feedback from a couple of BOAs and until I had a chance to see how Rhajit responds to this. And from then, I'm going to polish up the report. I'm going to add the summary of what we discussed here. And then we're going to talk about next steps and trying to move positively forward, And that's where we are right now. Okay, so I'll try to have this report for everyone done by Friday, tomorrow. If not, maybe on the weekend. I've reached out to every BOA. They have my mobile number. They have my personal email. So just feel free to reach me anytime, And yeah, that's it for me, really.
So again, thanks Victor for putting that together. I look forward to getting it. I look forward to working with all of you to see what we can, how we can affect some positive change around it. So Angela, maybe you and I can talk at some point, maybe not today, but down the road about April 16th and get that in place.
Sure.
And then I look forward to hearing about the ideas instead of a Jays game, what we can do. Alrighty?
Perfect.
Okay. Thanks everyone. Thank you for being on the call.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thank you.
Oh. And I like, this is the reality. These are the facts. Yeah. yeah, you know, the shit they were. And look, I told every single BOA, if I get one BOA that says to me, "Shut up, Victor, you don't represent my interests or our interests," I'll give this up. It's not.